Hi, good evening to all of you. Today, as part of our special discussion on Unacademy YouTube platform, we shall be discussing the questions of ethics paper. We will be discussing 2021-2020 mains ethics paper questions, section A questions, and with when the time permits, we will also discuss 2019 mains question paper also. And I am Pavan Kumar, and I will be taking this special class on YouTube, a session of the Unacademy platform. So let us, without wasting our time, let us go into the question paper. So what are the major observations that you can make of the 2020 mains UPSC ethics question paper? Of course, what you can see is that some of the questions are repeated from previous years. The syllabus of this paper is so less that you can expect UPSC to repeat the questions most of the time also. And some of the questions require what we call more application-oriented approach. None of the questions require any major technical aspects of this ethics paper as such. So when we discuss the questions, I will also explain to you the importance of writing answers, how you have to write answers, especially for ethics paper. What we must remember is that you have to write only 150 words. The major constraint here is the word limit. Second constraint is time limit. So you have to write very precise answers to the point and clear-cut answers with the focus on application aspects. So let us look at the questions. The first question: discuss the role of ethics and values in enhancing the following three major components of comprehensive national power: human capital, soft power, and social harmony. So, what the question talks about here is that nowadays, what we are talking about all around the world is not only the hard power in terms of economic growth, development, military equipment, trade, so on and so forth. We are also talking about comprehensive national power, which is basically used to calculate the hard power as well as soft power of a nation combined together. So it is not enough if you have economic growth, it is not enough if you have investment, it is not enough if you have a good military strength, it is not enough if you have equipment. What is required is much more than that. A country is not made up of its GDP, per capita income, or roads, or investment, or infrastructure. It is much more than that. That is why this concept of comprehensive national power had come into existence. And what are three important components here? First one, they call it as human capital. Second one is soft power, culture. And third one is social harmony. So when you are writing answers, what you must remember is that you must combine all of them first of all. You must integrate all of them in your answers. If you try to write all these things separately, then you will not get neither space nor time to cover them in a comprehensive manner. So you have to cover all of them: human capital, soft power, and social harmony. So this is what we say whenever you talk about growth and development of a country in the long term. What is required is you need human resources, what we call it as human capital. Second one is you need the kind of physical infrastructure to utilize the human resources in a more productive manner, and what we call it as soft power in terms of culture and policies. And third thing that you require is social harmony. Why? Because without hello. Voice is okay. Let me check it right. Okay. Yeah. So the third thing that you so let us go to the question again. It seems that there is some problem with the voice. So is it fine right now? Can you hear me now? Is it fine? Right? Okay. Then let us continue with these things. Okay, let me decrease the volume of my laptop. Just a minute. Yeah, of my laptop. So now is it fine? Can you hear me right now? Without any problem? Right. Then I have reduced the volume of my laptop. I think it should be fine right now. So what I am saying here is that you must combine all of them. Giving examples from India. So what we are saying here is that human resources, along with the ethical infrastructure and the social harmony, are the ones that are needed to ensure sustainable development of a country. And you have to give lots of examples for these things. Take the case of India itself. Take the case of India. What we have is human resources, human capital is there, but what we have is only demographic bulge, but not demographic dividend. Still echoing, still there is any problem. Is it not good? Can you hear me? Or any problem? Resound is coming. Let me check it again. Let me check it. Let me reduce the voice. Hello. पता नहीं मैंने तक किया था सब किया था फिर भी आ रहा है हाँ 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 मैं so let me try. Is it good right now? Can you hear me properly? Still, is there any problem? Yeah, can you hear me? Better? Okay, fine. Right. Still there is echo. Okay. Let me further reduce the let me reduce it. I have further reduced the volume. Now is it fine? Right? Right. Okay. Right. Let me see. Is it coming live? Yes, it is streaming. It is streaming live. Okay. Then, yeah. What I am saying here is that you must combine all of them: human capital, soft power, and social harmony. Give the example of India. In the last several years or so, we have not been able to ensure rapid economic growth and development because of these problems. We have not been able to transform our demographic bulge into demographic dividend. And we have not been able to create the necessary ethical infrastructure for the overall growth and development of the country. And on top of it, another problem that we are encountering here is this problem related to social harmony. Because we have so many problems related to caste, religion, community, region, so on and so forth. On the other hand, if you look at the developed countries, what you can see in those developed countries is they are able to manage these things in a far better manner. The culture is always dominated by what we call work culture, their work ethos. And they have been able to transform their demographic bulge into demographic, they have been able to transform their demographic bulge into demographic dividend. And they also have been able to ensure better social harmony compared to others. Right? Is it still echoing? Is there any still problem? Or can you hear me? Still there is problem. I don't know what to do because I have reduced the I have reduced this speakers. I have further reduced the volume of my laptop. Right? I have reduced it further. and then here also the voice is let me check it here also, right? Can you see right now? How is it? Right now, is it fine? I have reduced the echo here from yeah, yeah, completely okay. In fact, I have reduced this from some other place, right? Yeah, okay, then we can continue. I think we can continue. I have reduced the voice, right? Okay. So that is what we say. You have to combine all three of them while writing the answer. Now the question here is that discuss the role of ethics and values in enhancing these three things. Because when you talk about human capital, this is what we say. As I said, our education system produces only professionals that are needed for a capitalist economies. And what we require is human beings with values. That is where ethics and values can play a very important role. When it comes to soft power, culture and policies, again that is what we say. We should always be in a position to help others. We should always be in a position to come to the rescue of others. And the entire human relationships are built on the edifice of this trust and mutual trust between the people. And that is what we have to do. We are living in a materialistic society wherein it is the self-interest that dominates the functioning of the societies. We can use our soft power. India can use its soft power to enhance our national comprehensive national power also. And of course, social harmony. This is where ethics and values play a very important role. The most important source of ethics for any society is religion. And no religion teaches us that we should kill other human beings for the sake of the God. As Swami Vivekananda has rightly pointed out, we don't require our gods, we don't require gods, who want protection from us. It is the responsibility of the God to protect their devotees, not the responsibility of the devotees to protect their God. Once we realize this, there will only be what is called social harmony. This is what you have to write for this question. You have to talk about all three of them and combine all of them as part of your answer. And as I said, the challenging aspect of your answering here is that you have to write all these things only in 150 words. Next, education is not an injection. It is an effective and pervasive tool for all-round development of an individual and social transformation. Examine the new education policy 2020 in light of the above statement. Basically, this is what we keep on saying in our classes, if you remember. As we said, what is the basic problem with our education policy? Since the 1950s era, when we started embarking on this path of rapid economic growth and development, our education was mostly focused on what we call scientific temper. Unfortunately, in the process, what we have done is that we have completely ignored the role of values in our education policy. And if you look at the education policies, right from since the independence, the major education policies have completely ignored these things. And as I said, we have been able to produce only what we call specialist professionals who can be used by a capitalist economy to exploit others, to cheat others, to deceive others, to manipulate others. We have not been able to produce human beings. And if you look at the new education policy of 2020, it focuses on this all-round development of individual. That is what the basic problem with the previous education policy was, that the previous education policy, what it has done is that it has artificially divided this education into compartments like arts, sciences, then humanities, then literature, like that. This is what we always say. This is what you have to write in your answer also. Knowledge is just like an ocean. If you look at the water in the oceans all around the world, can you differentiate between the waters of, if you go to Kanyakumari and you see their water, where you find the Triveni Sangamam, wherein on the one side you have Bay of Bengal, on the other side you have Arabian Sea, and from the opposite side you have Indian Ocean. Can you differentiate between the waters of all these oceans and seas? You cannot. And if the water is there on the right side of India, you call it as Bay of Bengal. On the left side, you call it as Arabian Sea. In the same manner, when we talk about knowledge, knowledge is just like an ocean. Some people call it as physics, other people call it as chemistry, other people call it as geography, some other call it as history. And what we have done is that we have artificially divided this knowledge that created problems. Why? Because a person who studies economics does not know anything about physics. A person who studies history does not know anything about biology. And we have not been able to produce what we call complete individuals, all-round development. This is the most important aspect of national education policy. National education policy wanted to get rid of this kind of artificial compartmentalization of education. That is the crux of your answer. That is the reason why national education policy says that a person who is studying engineering should also study economics. They should have what we call interlinkages. They should know the interlinkages. They should that helps the individuals to transform themselves into complete human beings. Similarly, another important aspect of this national education policy is that it focuses more on understanding, analyzing, and rather than rote learning. The previous education policy focused only on rote learning. You have to mug up the things, you have to vomit them in the examination. That is the basic difference between the education systems of India and Western countries. That is the reason why when Indians go to foreign countries, if you happen to see sometime back, Indian Express newspaper had come out with a front page article wherein all the top rankers of CBS examination 25 years back were asked to give their opinion about the education system. And what all of them have said combined together is that whatever that they have studied as part of this undergraduation has absolutely no relevance to what they encountered when they went to the field level. That is the problem with our education system. That is the reason why the new education policy focuses more on practical aspects of life. It focuses more on the pragmatic aspects of professions rather than more on what we call theoretical aspects. This is again one of the revolutionary things that our new education policy had spoken about. Third thing that it has spoken about is it gives opportunities for people to leave the education and come back again to the mainstream of education. For example, you are in a graduation first year, you can take break, you can go and work and come back and complete your graduation second and third years, which is not available earlier. And similarly, you can take a mixture of subjects in graduation. You can take economics, you can take physics, you can take chemistry, you can take mathematics. So there is no hardcore compartmentalization. For example, you are an engineer. When you go to the field level, you are not only talking about constructing the project. You should know about displacement of the tribals. You should know about the cost benefit analysis. You should also know about how to persuade the people to give up their land. You need all these kind of all-round facilities. And that is the reason why you need the knowledge of social sciences. That is the reason why if you go to foreign countries, in foreign countries, even in engineering subjects also, they are taught sociology, anthropology, philosophy, and economics. That is the reason why they become better professionals compared to Indians. On the other hand, if you take software engineers, this is what we call trained incapacity. We are training our people. We are training our people to perform good only in one particular aspect of a profession. Rest of the other things, they simply do not have any kind of knowledge. Even a graduate nowadays don't know how to go to a bank and perform a transaction there. They don't know the difference between fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy. Why? Because compartmentalization. And whereas new education policy wants to overcome all these problems. That is what you have to write for this question by giving relevant examples. Right? If you have any doubts, you can put them here, as part of, the questions. I will clear all the doubts. Right? Next, hatred is destructive of a person's wisdom and conscience that can poison a nation's spirit. Do you agree with the view? Justify your answer. Yeah. So, as the question itself clearly says, hatred is destructive of a person's wisdom. Once you start hating people, then you lose your wisdom, you lose your conscience, you lose your creativity, and you always look at the person from a very completely different perspective. This is what we study in our attitude and behavior. If our attitude towards a person is negative, our behavior towards that person is always destructive in nature, and that is the reason why we should always have what we call a positive attitude. It is very easy to hate people. We can give hundreds of reasons why we should hate people, but I'll give you only one important reason why you have to love people, because they are also like us only. None of us are perfect. None of us can ever be perfect. So obviously, what we have to do is that if we find people with any kind of weaknesses, Instead of hating them, we should always try to reform them. And that is what that is what is required from a nation's perspective also. For example, you are a Hindu, and if you start hating Muslims, and you are a forward caste, you start hating the backward caste. And you are you are a man, and you start having a very low opinion about women. There are so many reasons, regional. India is a country with so much of diversity, religion, language, ethnicity, caste, region, and gender. So it gives us so many opportunities for us to hate other people. Obviously, once we start hating other people, we always think about how to destroy them, never think about how to constructively develop the country. And if you look at India, the basic problem that we face, as I keep on saying, is our ethical infrastructure is very, very weak. Why? Because the foundations of our ethical infrastructure are based on hatred. And we don't know how to love people also. We don't know how to excuse people for their mistakes. Obviously, that is the reason why the country cannot develop also. You take the case of the recent corona crisis last year, and what happened there? There was simply no love lost that was between the people and the government. And the government looks at people with so much of what we call mistrust. There is a lot of trust deficit. And it results in this kind of negative attitude, because of which ultimately development will be a casualty. That is the reason why we must replace this hatred with love. Because with love, you can win over the people permanently. You don't have to hate people to win over them. You don't require hate to conquer them. Love is more than enough. And that is what Mahatma Gandhi has said. And that is the reason why Mahatma Gandhi has always said all the time that he never hated the British. In fact, in his personal life, he had a lot of respect for them. He hated only the colonial rule. He tried to differentiate between the British structures, British governance, and British people. He always had a lot of regard and respect for those people, in spite of the fact that they ruled the country for such a long period of time. You have to differentiate between the actions. That is the reason why Mahatma Gandhi would always say that always punish the crime, and always make sure that you are reforming the criminal. This is what you have to write for this question. Next, what are the main components of emotional intelligence? Can they be learned? Discuss. What are the main components of emotional intelligence? As we talk about it, 5 important components of emotional intelligence. First one is self-awareness. Second one is self-regulation. Third one is empathy. Fourth one is social skills. And the last one is motivation. These are all the 5 components of emotional intelligence. Can they be learned? Definitely. They can be learned. How can we learn these things? Either self-awareness and self-regulation. We can learn these things by observing our own self. Over a period of time, we can we can learn these things by observing our own behavior and our own actions. As I said, we should know exactly where we are happy, when we are happy, when we are sad, when we are angry, when we are jealous. These are the things. Once we know these things, automatically we can easily control them. And empathy, social skills, we can learn these things from our role models. As we study in attitude and behavior chapter, we can learn all these attitudes through association. As Gautam Buddha points out, satsang is very important. If you are in the company of good people, you'll learn all these good values. And similarly, when you observe the role models, for example, as we discussed, Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, Ambedkar, when you look at them, we can learn so many of those qualities. Empathy, looking at Mahatma Gandhi, we can learn about empathy. Looking at Mahatma Gandhi, we can learn about social skills, communication. Looking at Mahatma Gandhi, we can learn about motivation. Looking at Ambedkar, we can learn about motivation, because Ambedkar, he had endured so much of trouble in his lifetime. He could have easily become a rebel. He could have easily become a revolutionary, but that did not. He wanted to empower his people. He wanted to develop his people. He wanted to do it in a more constructive manner. Definitely, we can learn all these things. And whenever you are writing answers to these kind of questions, as I keep on saying, you should give examples, of great people. This is what you have to write for this question. Then, let us move on to the next question. What teachings of Buddha are most relevant to today, and why? discuss. As we study in our ethics classes also, Buddhist philosophy is very important. Gautam Buddha had spoken about the 10 important meritorious deeds which we should always follow for our what is called salvation. So, what are the teachings of the Buddha that are very important for us? First and foremost, for salvation, Gautam Buddha has said that we don't require any intermediaries. Buddha was totally against this Vedic Brahminical religion, which led to exploitative practices. Gautam Buddha has said that we don't need to perform any rituals, we don't have to do any pujas, we don't have to do anything else. We can attain salvation through our own meritorious deeds. All those 10 meritorious deeds that Gautam Buddha had spoken about are still relevant even today. You can remember, you can find, you can write all those 10 of them. But since you have to write only 150 words, you can write at least 5 to 6 of them. Charity, very important. And then developing the mental culture. Then Gautam Buddha had also spoken about rejoicing in the merit of others, sharing our merits with others. And then he also said that developing this moral morality. So if you look at all of them, and he also said that preaching and teaching dharma, then listening to dharma, in all these, all of them are extremely important for us in the present day societies. We are living in a materialistic society wherein the societies are always governed by self-interest, which results in exploitation, manipulation, deception, and cheating. That is the reason why Gautam Buddha has said that we must always do charity. He said that we must develop a mental culture wherein we can have that peace of mind irrespective of our surroundings. As long as we attach ourselves to the soul and not to the physical, outside physical comforts, we can have that kind of peace of mind. And he said that we should always be in the company of good people. When two politicians meet, they only talk about politics. When two businessmen meet, they only talk about money and profits. On the other hand, when two knowledgeable people, learned people meet, they always talk about dharma. And that is what Gautam Buddha has said. This is what he said we should be doing. Why they are relevant? I don't need to say about their relevance, more than what we have discussed. Yes, like reverence. He had spoken about 10 meritorious deeds. If you write 5 of them and discuss why they are relevant, that should be more than sufficient. Next, moving on to the next question. Right? Moving on to the next question. The will to power exists, but it can be tamed and guided by rationality and principles of moral duty. Examine the statement in the context of international relations. So, what is this one? What the statement says here? The statement speaks about a very simple thing. The moment we have the power, we always want to dominate others, influence others, regulate others, and control others. That is what we study. The basic human tendency is always to dominate others. The basic human tendency is always to dominate others. When you cannot dominate, then only we talk about peace. Then only we talk about what we call coordination and cooperation. Otherwise, we want to dominate others. And this will to dominate others, power exists, but it can be tamed by guidance and guided by rationality and principles of moral duty. So, what rationality demands here is that today you are powerful, so you are dominating others. Tomorrow some other country becomes powerful, and what do? They also try to dominate you. So if you are in a position of power, your relationship with other countries should be based on trust, faith, and cooperation. On the other hand, if it is based on dominance, exploitation, as we studied in ethics paper all the time, human relations are reciprocal in nature. In the same manner, relations between the countries are also reciprocal in nature. If you are helping one country, automatically they can come to your rescue also whenever you are facing problems. The best example is during the recent corona crisis, India has supplied so much of this medical equipment to America. Remdesivir injection. American president has requested India that India should immediately send that remdesivir injection to America because America was facing severe corona crisis. Immediately India has supplied, India has exported. And India has also exported vaccines as part of Vaccine Mitra policy. So the moment when India was facing problem, almost every country in the world had come forward and said that they are there to help India, including WHO. WHO has said that it is the moral responsibility of the countries around the world to come and help India to overcome the second corona wave. Why? Because that is what we have done, and that is what is called rationality and the principles of moral duty. What are these principles of moral duty? This is what we study with Immanuel Kant. We are all human beings of this universe. The countries are nothing but the physical, artificial boundaries created by people for their self-interest. We must rise above them, and we must always think the entire world as nothing but one union. That is what Indian philosophy also says. Vasudhaiva Kutumbaka. The entire world is part of a single family. That is the reason why, as we study, power is not about dominating others. There is a very beautiful thinker called Mary Parker Foley. That is how she defines power. She said that power is not about dominating others or influencing others, regulating others. It is about it is about changing the lives of others. It is about being the causal agent. It is about bringing the necessary intended consequences. And America can be called the most powerful country if it comes to the rescue of others, not when it dominates others. That is what the countries around the world have realized also. We are living in an interlinked world in the age of globalization. So we cannot completely isolate ourselves, and we must come to the rescue of others. That is what the question says. Again, these kind of questions, as I said, you have to answer with as many examples as you can. Distinguish between laws and rules. Discuss the role of ethics in formulating them. So, what are these laws? What are the rules? Please remember, when we discuss about the sources of ethics, what we say is that when we discuss about the sources of ethics, what we say is that two important sources of ethics are these laws, rules, and regulations. These laws are formulated by the state. Again, when we discuss about the ethics, what we say is that after religion, the most powerful authority that determines the ethics in any country is the state. And how does the state determine the ethics in the country? Through the laws formulated by the state. And these laws are based on what we call, as we studied here, you have to quote one of the important philosophers, political philosophers, Thomas Hobbes. What did Thomas Hobbes say? Laws can be either moral or immoral or amoral. Laws can be either moral, immoral, or amoral. That means they can be good for the society, sometimes they can do bad for the society, sometimes they can be neither good nor bad. But what we say is that laws should always be based on morality. That means whatever that is good for the collectively, whatever that is collectively good for the entire society should be converted into law. And what we say here about laws is that if these laws are violated, the state can punish people. A reward and punishment mechanism. Those who follow the laws will be rewarded, and those who violate them will be punished by the state. The objective is to promote positive behavior and regulate negative behavior. Whereas the rules are formed by the society as part of the culture. These rules and regulations are basically formed by the society as part of their culture and traditions. And what you have to remember is that these rules are not having any kind of what we call legal sanctity. For example, it is part of our culture that we must respect other people. It is a part of our culture that we must help other people when they are in problem. It is part of our culture that we should always respect our elders in the society. And if you don't follow them, it does not mean that you will be punished. But it is part of the ethics of the society. And these rules are formed over a period of time, through these traditions and customs and everything else. And basically, it is the religion. It is the religion. It is also the traditions and customs over a period of time are the ones which can help you to come out with these rules. And that is what you have to write for this question. Next, going further, a positive attitude is considered to be an essential characteristic of a civil servant who is often required to function under extreme stress. What contributes to a positive attitude in a person? So what we say is that a civil servant should always be proactive, should always be dynamic, should always be willing to take up risks, should always be showing courage of conviction. This is what we call positive attitude. Why? Why this is required? Why this is required? Because a civil servant performs under extremely severely stress conditions. He faces so many challenges from his superiors, from media, from his subordinates, from his colleagues, from NGOs and civil society organizations, from opposition parties. Everyone will be paying for his blood all the time. Everyone will be trying to make sure that he commits mistakes so that he can be made accountable. And he'll be working under severe stress. The politician will always ask him to get the results, irrespective of the situation at the ground level. And the media always tries to put whatever the small mistakes committed by him. They always try to see the small mistakes committed by him through different lens, and they put all the things in the public, saying that these are severe grave crimes also. And your subordinates working under you, will never be as committed as you are, as disciplined as you are, as a professional as you are. Under these circumstances, it becomes very easy for a civil servant to become negative in his attitude. It becomes very easy for a civil servant, to get depressed. I was meeting some of our students, collectors, and they showed me, in our discussions, they showed me in half an hour they get at least around 100 complaints. What are the complaints like this? A woman complains that the water is not coming out of her tap, so she is blaming the collector for it. And another person says that his owner is beating him, and that is the reason why he says that he should come to the rescue. So for everything that happens, that is what happens when you become district collector. Everything that happens in the district, you are responsible. If it is raining, you are responsible. If it does not rain, again you are responsible. And under these circumstances, what is required is what we call positive attitude on the part of the civil servant. It is very difficult. What contributes to this positive attitude? That is very important. What contributes to this positive attitude in a person? First and foremost, his value system. His value system can contribute positive attitude. His value system. What do you mean by his value system? He must be selfless. He must be, have empathy. He must be, sacrificing self-interest. He must be honest. He must be committed to public service. It is the value system that can contribute. And how this value system is decided? How this value system is influenced? One is his education. Whatever that education teaches him is the one that really makes him a good or better human being. Second, his parents in his childhood. It is the parents who can contribute to the value system of a person. It is the parents who teach him that, take the case of Shivaji, one of the great warriors. His mother, Jijabai, was the one who instilled confidence in him, who made sure that he would never lose his confidence. You have to give all these quotations. And similarly, take the case of Mahatma Gandhi. It is his parents who strayed, who have immensely influenced his attitude towards life in the future. And then it is your role models. Whenever you face any troubles in your life, you remember your role models, how they have tackled those problems, and you try to compare your situation with that of your role models, and you realize the fact that they face many more problems than you, but still they never, really they never really influenced by those kind of problems around them. Take the case of Mahatma Gandhi again. Give the example of Ambedkar. Ambedkar faced so many challenges in his childhood. He faced untouchability. He faced everything else, but he never gave up. That is what we call positive attitude. All these are the things that can contribute to a positive attitude in a person. Next, what are the main factors responsible for gender inequality in India? Discuss the contribution of Savitri Bai Phule in this regard. Why this question was asked? I think last year, the country celebrated 100 years of Savitri Bai Phule, birth centenary of Savitri Bai Phule. If I am not wrong, this is what I could remember. You have to keep on looking at these kind of things in newspapers. Very, very important. UPSC will remember all these birth anniversaries and centenaries and all these things. That is the reason why the question was asked. What are the main factors? First part of the question. You know, what are the main factors that are responsible for gender inequality in India? Very simple, very straightforward. What are the main factors responsible for gender inequality in India? First and foremost, patriarchal societies. Since the times immemorial in India, what we had is only patriarchal societies, male-dominated societies. Second factor is the major occupation of people in India is what we call agriculture, and agriculture requires only physical manual labor. Obviously, it gives more importance to men than women in the families. Third is that in India, the culture is that you know women are always considered as outsiders in the family. Why? Because according to Indian traditions and customs, it is the male members who carry on the family name and family legacy. Whereas women, when they are married off, they become part of other families. And that is the reason why men are never treated as equals, or women are never treated as equals to men in Indian societies. That is the reason why a son and a daughter are treated differently. Fourth factor for gender inequality in India is dowry. Whenever you have a girl child, the parents always think about two things. One is how much amount of money they should spend on the education of the girl child, because they have to calculate the amount of dowry that also they have to pay. If they spend a huge amount of money on their girl child, on their education, obviously they will be forced to spend more amount of money, because they have to get a groom who is more educated than her. Obviously, it becomes more difficult for them. So that is the reason why we have this kind of inequality there. And next one is we don't have what we call India dignity of labor. We believe that there are certain things which have to be performed only by women, girl in our society. Cooking, washing, cleaning, all these are considered to be activities performed by women only. On the other hand, if these activities are performed by men, the men are severely made fun of by the society. So these are all the factors that contributed to gender inequality in India. They don't have education, women. They don't have any wealth. They don't have any money. They don't have any self-esteem. They are never considered as human beings also. Hundreds of years, thousands of years. And, right? And under these circumstances, discuss the contribution of Savitri Bai Phule. As all of you know, Savitri Bai Phule, even though she belonged to a higher caste, she had overcome the caste prejudices, and in Maharashtra, she had worked for the empowerment of a girl child. She had started schools, she had started educational institutions for girl child, and she faced so much of severe opposition, severe resistance from her own caste people. She belonged to a Brahmin caste, and she was treated as an outcast. Nobody would talk to her, her relatives and her friends, and she was treated as outcast. And they created so many hurdles, and they threatened her with death also. But she never went back. She focused. She had spent entire life on improving the quality of life of women in Maharashtra. She had become a role model for so many social reformers, in spite of the fact that she had come from a very conservative family. She, along with her husband, Jyotiba Phule, they worked mostly. Jyotiba Phule first worked mostly for emancipation of backward castes, whereas Savitri Bai Phule worked for empowerment of women. In those days, go back to 100 years. In those days, she had the kind of conviction, courage of conviction, to start educational institutions for girl child, separate educational institutions, so that she believed truly that if women are educated, they can be easily empowered also. And even now, after 100 years also, the same thing is what is needed to ensure empowerment of women in our society. So these are all the things that you have to write for this question. Next, as you can see, in none of the questions that we have discussed, there is nothing like what we call concepts that are asked. Basically, entire ethics paper nowadays is mostly about application oriented, wherein you are expected to know what is happening in your society. You should know, you should be able to understand your society inside out, in terms of its culture, its values, its ethos, its traditions, its customs, and also analyze those things from rational perspective and also come out with constructive solutions. That is what is needed for this ethics paper. Next, the current internet expansion has instilled a different set of cultural values which are often in conflict with the traditional values discussed. This is what we say. The coming up of this, what is called social media, internet, had radically altered the values of our society. It had radically altered the values of our traditional societies. So, what are the traditional values, right? And how they have been, they have come into conflict with the so-called social media, internet expansion. So, what are the traditional values that we are talking about? The traditional values that we talk about is that we talk about the fact that human beings are social animals. That is what we say. And how do we know? We always say that we are also interdependent on others for our survival. We always talk about living the real world. For example, I'll just give you one example how it has radically altered. In the good old days, when there was no internet, when there was no WhatsApp video calls, when there was no any of those technical help, what we say here is that this is the statement you have to quote in your answers also. With the expansion of internet, with the expansion of technology, we thought that it would bridge the distances between the people. It would reduce the distances between the people. We thought that it would make sure that people would come together very close. On the other hand, in reality, what happened is it has widened the distances between the people. It has increased the distance between the people. That is the irony of internet. How? Again, I will give you an example. Go back to 20 years or 25 years. You get a call from your parents that they are not well. And as a traditional, as a lovable duty-bound son, what do? Immediately, you leave everything, go to your parents, and make sure that you are helping them. You are near their bedside, and you are making sure that they take their medicines and everything very well. And you make sure that you are taking them to the doctor, and you make sure that they are recovering fully also. Because in those days, there was no so-called technology to know about what they are. Now, come to 2020. The son is in America, parents are in India, and immediately the son is informed by the parents that the son is informed by the parents that they are not well. Immediately, what does he do? He will say that let us connect over WhatsApp video call, and he will tell them that you have to do like this, you have to do like this. After 5 minutes, he switches it off, and the parents will be all alone in the house. It is believed that technology would reduce the distances. In fact, it has increased the distances. This is the kind of challenge that we are facing to our traditional values. There is no love, there is no compassion, there is no reciprocity, there is no help, there is no assistance. Right now, everything is what we are living in, what is called a completely hallucinated world. By talking to your parents, over WhatsApp video call, thousands of kilometers away, and asking them to take the medicines on time, is different from you going there and giving them the medicine with your own hand and serving them. If they are hungry, you cannot say that just take the food and have the food. That they can do on their own. They don't require your advisor who is wherein you are thousands of kilometers away from them. It has made human relations completely impersonal. As I said, this is the statement you have to quote. It is believed that technology would reduce the distances between the people. Unfortunately, it has increased the distances. We are living in a completely hallucinated world. I'll give you one more example here. Take the case of children. In your childhood also, you must have seen that children would go out and they will play with everyone in a physical activities. Now, what is happening is with the technology, internet expansion, is that children are playing only in front of their laptops and computers and mobile phones. You should take even a 5-year-old child also. Half the time he or she spends only on mobile, playing all those kinds of games. And when someone asks me, do you know about PUBG? I said that I don't know anything about it, and they are looking at me as if I belong to this Chalcolithic age. That is the kind of thing. And what is happening here is that they are living in what is called, they are leading completely unreal life. and they don't know the value of emotions. Right now already what we are having is only what is called nuclear families. Nuclear family means mother, father and children. And for children, everyone who is not their father is uncle, anyone who is not their mother is aunt, and nothing else. They don't know any other relationships because they don't live in what is called joint families. On top of it, they always are there in front of the television screen, or or in front of the laptops with internet connections. So they don't completely, they watch so much of violence on television. Even if they see violence on the road, in reality they think that it is part of real life only. They don't have that kind of empathy. So empathy, love and affection, services, selfless service, commitment, these are the values, the traditional values on which the societies have developed. All these values have been thrown to the winds because of this internet expansion. And we are living in a completely what we call unrealistic world, wherein what is real is becomes unreal, what is unreal becomes real. Unfortunately, that is the thing. That is the reason why, how do we conclude our answer? How do we conclude our answer? What is our conclusion? The conclusion is very simple. Technology can serve the mankind best only when it is the obedient servant. The moment technology becomes, the moment technology becomes the arrogant master, then it results in the end of civilization, which is what is happening right now. Which is what is happening right now. It results in entropy. Technology should always remain an obedient servant. We must control technology. We should not allow technology to control us. That is what you have to write as part of conclusion. Right? So as you can see here, all these questions do not require any kind of studies. Always say that for ethics paper, you should not study at all anything. Just go to the examination hall with an open mind. You will answer all the questions. We have discussed so many questions till now. Please tell me any single question that requires a so-called conceptual knowledge in ethics. Not at all. Then let us come to the quotations. Condemn none. If you can stretch out a helping hand, do so. If not, hold your hands. Bless your brothers and let them go their own way. Swami Vivekananda. Very beautiful statement. We are living in a society which is full of hatred, revenge, anger, frustration, violence. For everything else, we start shouting at people. If given an opportunity, we start beating people also. We are losing the basic human value called love and compassion. We are losing the basic human value, called called pardoning people for their crimes. As Mahatma Gandhi says, to commit a crime is human. To forgive people is divine. We don't have that kind of culture right now. Our societies have become extremely aggressive. Someone has overtaken you, you are driving, and then what will you do? Immediately you will overtake that person, you stop your car and get out of the car and start beating that person. Why? Because you cannot tolerate these kind of things. You take everything to heart. That is the reason why, what Vivekananda has said, condemn none. We are not here to criticize people. We are not here to make fun of people. We are not here to, scold people. We are not here to abuse people. We are not here to do any of those things. Condemn none. If you can stretch out a helping hand, do so. If at all, if you can help other people, do so definitely. If you cannot help, just fold your hands, bless your brothers, and let them go their own way. You are not here to regulate, control, direct people. A beautiful statement. If at all, what you can do is just love the people. Do not develop any kind of hatred. Do not become revengeful. Do not become violent in your behavior. As you can see, road rage is what we have seen in India. You are driving and then suddenly you start beating people because other people have overtaken you. For a small mistake, we start fighting with our neighbors. And India's favorite pastime is, gossiping. That is what we say. Whenever two people meet, they always talk about the third person. Why do you have to worry about others? Why do you have to criticize others? Why do you have to think about others? If at all you are thinking about others, think only from one perspective. That is, whether you can help the people or not. If you can, help the people. If you cannot, just remain silent. This is what is needed for a present day society like India, which has become very, very violent. You can see people, going on the streets, destroying the shops and, hitting people and, indulging in all kinds of violence. Why? Because, people are not behaving the way you expect them to, which is complete nonsense. If you want societies to be peaceful and prosperous, just, you're not there to change the societies. You're not there to reform the societies. You're not there to regulate the societies. This is the job of the government. Let the government do its job. Your job is to love others, help others. If you cannot, just remain silent. That is what Swami Vivekananda has said. Next question. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. This is what I always say. In fact, the same statement I had given in my test series also, Mahatma Gandhi. Every year, UPSC gives one statement of Mahatma Gandhi. So what I would suggest to you people is that collect all the important statements of Mahatma Gandhi, around 40-50 statements. And you will find that all of them will be there in the UPSC examination in your ethics paper. And Mahatma Gandhi has a quotation for everything under the sun, including the sun and about the sun also. So you don't have to worry about not having any kind of, not having any kind of scarcity of, statements from Mahatma Gandhi. So the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. So go back to Hindu philosophy, what we have discussed. The ultimate objective of human life, according to Hindu philosophy, is self-realization. Self-realization means realizing your true self. What is your true identity in this world? You are not an Indian. You are not a male. You are not a person from North India or South India. You are not anything, all these things. These are all artificial identities that we have created for ourselves. Then what is your true identity? And how to find out your true identity? That is what Hindu philosophy says. You can find out your true identity by losing your identity. A beautiful statement. You can find out your true identity by, foregoing your present identity. How? How can you do that? Once you realize the fact that, the entire world is of what we call Advaita. That means there is only one single soul. And this soul manifests itself in various bodies. That is the reason why, Adi Shankaracharya has said that rightly, whatever the world that we see in front of us is not true. Everything is part of Maya. The only reality is that there is only one soul which manifests itself in, different bodies. And how do we find out those things? That is what we say. When the other person is happy, when the other person is hungry, when the other person is prolonged with his health, you must feel the sufferings of that other person, because the soul is the same. Your soul feels the sufferings of the other person, and what do? You will immediately go and help that person. When you are helping that person, you don't look for any kind of rewards, awards, recognition, money or gratitude, because that is what you will be doing for yourself. When you are hungry, you will have food, and when you have food, when you are hungry, you don't expect any kind of recognition from the society. When you have problem with your health, you take medicines. Again, you don't expect any kind of return for what you have done. In the same manner, if you do the same thing for other people, that is what Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Nishkam Karma. Once you become selfless in your actions, then you will realize your true self. This is what exactly the statement of Mahatma Gandhi. So you have to combine all of them while writing the answer. Next question. A system of morality which is based on relative emotional values is a mere illusion, a thoroughly vulgar conception which has nothing sound in it and nothing true. Socrates. A very beautiful statement again. The basic problem with philosophers is that they put simple meanings in a complicated format. That is when it becomes difficult for us to understand. So what Socrates is trying to say here is, a system of morality which is based on relative emotional values. So that means, what do you mean by system of morality? A system of morality means a system which tells us what is good and what is bad. What is good and what is bad, which is based on relative emotional values. That means this good and bad, if you are defining it from what is called secondary values. It is a mere illusion. It is a thoroughly vulgar conception which has nothing to sound in it and nothing true. What do we mean by that? As we study with morality, ethics, and values, what we say is that there are certain values, certain morals, certain ethics which are absolutely universal, and you cannot be, relative with those things. For example, selflessness. Take the case of selflessness. You cannot say that I will be selfless only in certain actions, otherwise I will be selfish. That is what is called relative emotional values. You cannot say that I will be good, 90% good. That means 10% you will be bad. Again, which is vulgar. You cannot say that, I will have love and compassion only for my own people, but not for others. That is again completely vulgar. You cannot say that, you cannot say that I will be, what you call showing empathy only towards my own people, not for others. That is what Socrates has criticized. He said that what happens in most other societies is that these kind of moral values are defined by what we call the powerful leaders in the society, and these powerful leaders in the society come out with these relative moral values for their own benefit. The best example is the religious traditions and customs. You take the case of religious and traditions and customs of most of the religions. They are formulated by men. That is the reason why most of the religious traditions and customs are against women. Women are not allowed entry into temples. Women cannot become. Have we ever seen a woman becoming a pope? We have seen a black, becoming pope. But have we ever seen a woman becoming a pope? Why not? A system of morality set on, relative emotional values. They say that women cannot become a pope. What kind of nonsense is this? Have we ever seen a woman becoming the priest in Islam? Or have you ever seen a woman becoming a priest in a temple? Recently, Tamil Nadu state government has done those things. And in Jainism, there is no scope for any women participation. Jainism focuses only on what is called brahmacharya. And Buddhism, there is no scope for women. Buddha has strongly rejected when women wanted to enter, become part of his sangha. This is what we call relative morality, which is vulgar. It has nothing sound in it and it is nothing true, because the nature does not differentiate between all these things. As we studied with these Upanishads, the rivers do not drink the water for themselves. The trees do not eat the fruits for themselves, consume the fruits. The clouds do not consume the grains for themselves. They do not differentiate between the people. That is what we have to learn from the nature. Absolute universal values. On the other hand, when we talk about this kind of relative morality, it can only destroy civilizations. It can only result in the end of civilization. The natural tendency of any society is to move towards entropy. What is good for America need not be good for the rest of the world. And what is good for India may not be good for the rest of the world. This relative emotional values is a mere illusion. These values are always absolute, they should always be universal. It is as simple as that. Rest of other things are only created by the people for their own selfish vested interests. That is what you have to write for this question. So right, I think the time is also up. We have already crossed the time. The time is up. I think we can stop it here for today. As we proceed, I will take up rest of the questions also. As you can see, what we can learn from all these discussions, you need in-depth understanding of our societies. That is what is required. Nothing else is required. Any amount of reading will not help you to write good answers, except one, you must have a strong ethical foundations. Second, you must have the analytical bent of mind to look at the things from what we call empirical rational perspective and come out with better solutions. This is what is required. For example, look at the question, internet, how we have explained the things. As I said, you have to quote these kind of statements. It is believed that the technology would help us to reduce the distances. In reality, it has increased the distances. These are the things which you have to write. Right? Hope this discussion, would have helped you in clearing your concepts and also in writing good answers. Next time we will come back with another fruitful discussion on another subject. Till then, take care of yourself. Thank you very much.